The idea of dollar cost averaging was extraordinarily comforting to me. And I'd love to go into what it is, why it's useful, and whether you think that applies to what's happening in crypto.
So there's a mythology of investing. The mythology of investing is hedge fund manager George Soros spots the opportunity, gets in at the right price, makes a fortune. The reality is most people have no idea where the price is going over a short term. So what happens is you buy something, you put all your money in, you've saved up your $5,000, you put it all into Bitcoin. Bitcoin falls 50%, you panic, you sell it, you feel terrible. Bitcoin goes back up again, you feel even worse now. You can scrape together, you've lost, half of your money now, and then you keep compounding these errors, right? It's called market timing, and market timing is extraordinarily difficult. I do some market timing, because that's been my job. And 30 years, I've done more than my 10,000 hours, a lot more than my 10,000 hours. And that doesn't make me very good at it either. I'm not bad at it in long-term investing. I'm terrible at short-term. So what is dollar cost averaging? Dollar cost averaging is basically what everybody does with their 401k. The problem is with 401ks or retirement funds is nobody cares about them. You don't know what's in it. You have no ownership. You just put some of your salary away and it goes in this mythical thing that you probably assume won't be worth as much money as you hope it is. That's what that's become. And you put it in every month. Why do you do that? Well, because you're averaging all of the highs and lows over time, because markets tend to do this. So you're kind of indifferent. In fact, you love it when it falls because you're buying more units at a lower price, because your game is to own as much as you can at the lowest possible price. But if you don't know how to market time, and 99.9% of people don't and can't and shouldn't, then you just average in over time and magic will happen. You just average a beautiful price over time. And had you done that in the S&P or anything else, you'd make money. Now, what's so lovely about Bitcoin is it's not a passive investment like your retirement fund, because a retirement fund you can't access until later. So you kind of write it off, and everybody's heard that it's never going to be worth as much as it should be anyway. So it's become a bit of a pain, as opposed to something. But this, you own, you live and breathe that volatility, and you live and breathe those gains when they happen. And you will be like wide-eyed. I did it to my sister-in-law, forced her to do this. I said, listen, I'm going to make it easy for you. Just go and open a PayPal account, start that way. And she had some savings. She could take out of another thing. She had like $5,000, $10,000, and she put it in, and we got the timing relatively right. So it shot up a lot. I think she got in about 13,000 in Bitcoin.
Whoa.
And it shot 17. Yeah. And it shot up a lot. So she's like, wow. And then it falls a lot. And she's calling me up saying, what do I do? Should I sell some? I'm like, no, you keep putting in part of your paycheck. And after all of these falls, these several falls, she starts to really understand. And when they start falling a lot, she starts doubling the amount that she would have normally invested. And now she's taught herself to invest. Next thing I hear, oh, well, I bought some Ethereum. And this is how I'm dealing with that. So she's now looking at two different things. And she's now thinking about the asset allocation. What's going to outperform Ethereum with Bitcoin? She knew nothing about this stuff. This is a year and a half. And she now understands, because of that dollar cost averaging and taking ownership, that you, exactly as you said, once you actually own something, that 401k, you don't actually really own. It's like some other guy does something with it and hopefully he makes money. This is you. You're taking responsibility for your own finances. That's so empowering.
One thing that I think is really important that I haven't heard people talking about, and just because my mind is so simplistic when it comes to investing, is I look at the stock market and I've got a money manager and like all that, and she's trying to explain to me puts and calls and all this. I'm like, this is so fucking confusing. I don't want to think about this. I want to go run my business. And so I just never wanted to get on the phone and talk about it. It was just too complicated. Part of the glory of what's happening right now in Bitcoin is if you stay, or crypto, if you stay sort of at the top of the ones that have the most sort of crowd validation, because you can get into the deep weeds on what's going on in altcoins, but if you just stay at the top, which has massive crowd validation, and you go, okay, I'm gonna buy a bit of Bitcoin, I'm going to buy a bit of Ethereum. And then you learn, like your sister did, about the volatility and like how to ride that wave and to recognize. And for anybody listening, if you're new to this idea, have a thesis. You dollar cost average based on your thesis. So here is Tom's overly simplistic thesis that I believe that technology is a one-way street, that very few people are in cryptocurrency right now. I believe that over time, it will take over some massive percentage of the financial system. So let's say that it goes to, I don't know, become a $10 trillion asset. So I can buy that. It doesn't take an extraordinary leap of faith. It's at just below, I think, 1 trillion as of the time that we're recording this. So I'm like, whoa, 10x my money. Like that would be incredible. Okay, well, as long as I believe in that thesis, I want the price to drop. So when the price drops, I'm not panicking. I'm like, yeah, buddy, because like you said, now the amount has gone down. So when I first got into this, it was the height of the euphoria. Like Bitcoin was just going to the moon. It was just insane. And so I was like, oh my God, I have to buy into this. And so I bought in, I started dollar cost averaging, and the price is going up, 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 and I'm still dollar cost averaging. And I'm like, oh man, should I be going faster? Like the price is going high. And I'm like, no. Dollar cost average, you never know what's gonna happen. And then boom, whatever happened, I guess it was like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that. It just fucking went down like 30, 40%. And I was like, oh, thank God. I still have, one, my thesis is still intact. Two, the amount of money I was willing to invest, I haven't hit yet. So now at this much lower price, so what I am training myself to be obsessed over is the break-even point. So if my original break-even point was, let's say, $52,000 for Bitcoin, as that came down and I kept buying in and buying in and buying in, now my break-even point goes from 52,000, I got it down to like 30 something. And so I'm like, this is incredible. So now that we're riding that wave back up, and I'm telling my wife, like, we're up this much in 48 hours. We're up this much in a week. We're up this much in 10 days. She's like, what? Like, it's almost impossible to believe. And I'm very careful to check that, like, hey, the euphoria is dangerous. You have to be careful. You have to constantly, like, the wolf is right behind you. Like, you really do have to be thoughtful. But dollar cost averaging based on a thesis, that's the way to go.